For those of you that got divorced after being married for 10 years, what caused your divorce? Story 1. The onion rings. Our marriage was awful. 10 years of severe emotional abuse, gaslighting, and religious trauma. We had stopped having 4 years in. I was depressed. He hated how ungodly I had become deconstructing. But we didn't believe in divorce. I was tied to him forever. One day we went to a diner, and I asked him to order me a sandwich with a side of onion rings if the waitress came while I went to the bathroom. I tried to break the usual tension by making a joke or being cute. When I came back to the table, he told me he had ordered our food. So I joked about how onion rings must be healthy since they were a vegetable. He told me I was stupid for believing such nonsense. How dumb I was for ordering onion rings. He ranted for 5 minutes about how any idiot who thinks onion rings are healthy should know that the frying process takes out all the nutrients and they're the most unhealthy thing anyone could eat. I sat in silence, defeated, afraid to eat, afraid to annoy him any further. Then the waitress brought out our order, my sandwich with a side of onion rings, and his chicken wrap with a side of onion rings. Something inside me snapped. All I could do was stare at his plate. It was somehow a literal physical representation of our entire relationship staring me in the face. He ate every last onion ring. It took me a year to set myself up to leave, safely. But I got out and never looked back. He remarried 3 months after our divorce was finalized. It took me a solid year before I could even go on one single date again. Story 2. It was a long time coming, but 2 straws broke the camel's back. 1. She woke me up at 6 a.m. to tell me she had signed up to give a talk at a psychoanalytical conference about her affair with her boss that we were trying to work through. 2. She made me make a lasagna for her book club, but I had to pretend she had made it because she would be walking in the door 5 minutes before book club. The second one seems less problematic than the first, but they both highlighted that I was just a prop for her narcissism. Story 3. Not me, but my parents. They divorced after over 30 years of marriage because my dad had cancer and didn't die. My mother was very upset, and that made her realize just how unhappy she was in the marriage. They should have gotten divorced 20 years earlier, but they stayed miserable for the children. All the children were, subsequently, miserable too. Story 4. He wouldn't do his part. He wouldn't contribute to household expenses. He wouldn't do any household chores. He just wouldn't. If I'm doing everything by myself, I might as well live by myself. So I did. Story 5. During COVID, I stayed home, trying to facilitate e-learning for elementary-age kids. I only left the house twice a month to grocery shop. I was trying to minimize exposure since my, at the time, husband's job still required him to travel. In reality, he was just checking into the nicest hotels in our large city and paying for, and online shopping for expensive art, which was shipped to and decorated his office. As it turns out, leisurely lunch hour is also frowned upon by employers, was fired from his job and earned himself a divorce. While wallowing in self-pity, one of his sexcapades was an undercover police officer in a sting operation, which is a felony in my state. Currently uses his MBA to deliver sandwiches. Story 6. I got divorced after 9 years. Things had been going well up until I started getting debilitating migraines that forced me to stop working about 7 years in. They were so bad that I was bedridden most days and even had trouble speaking. The doctors were having a hard time finding anything that could help, and it turns out that when faced with the possibility of having to care for a disabled partner, she realized that the in sickness and in health part of the vows wasn't for her. Luckily, just a couple months after the divorce, a new migraine drug was approved by the FDA, Emgality. That pretty much eliminated my migraines 20 days per month down to less than 2. It still took another 6 months for me to get my strength back after being bedridden for so long, though. But at that point, I went back to college, got a degree, landed a fantastic job with a great boss, and when I asked him about potentially moving abroad, he was supportive. And now I own a house in Japan and have an amazing fiancé that is far more perfect for me. Story 7. I kept trying and trying and trying, but finally realized my loyalty to him was not helping me with anything in my own life. So I divorced him, and then I found out about his girlfriend. So yeah. Story 8. I realized I didn't like her. She was the first girl to ever show me any attention, and it took me 20 years to realize I fell in love with that attention, not her. It could have been anyone. Story 9. She lied about wanting kids, strung me along for 10 years, told me we were trying when she was taking birth control, even had me get fertility checked. Her plan was to pretend like she couldn't get pregnant, I guess. Remarried now, happily, and a father of 3. Story 10. She was cheating, and had cheated before. This time it was blatant, and her rages at me were cycling back to love bombing, and I couldn't take it. Our finances were. I was working 60 hours a week and paying all the bills while she wrote hot checks all over town. She went to a payday loan to borrow money to go on a float trip down the Grand Canyon with some friends. One was her boyfriend. His wife found out and stopped him from going. Then I found it was scheduled for the week of our anniversary. I went to a lawyer and drew up separation papers. I went to the bank and told them either give us a suspended payment plan or come get the house. I went to counseling. After 30-day separation, I knew it was over, and I could do much better without her in my life. Story 11. We got married and had kids really young. After 20 years, the kids were grown and gone, and we realized we had nothing in common. It was a very amicable divorce. We still do things with the kids on holidays and birthdays. We just found out we were better friends than marriage partners. Story 12. I was married at age 24 and was married for 18 years before I called it quits. We had 4 kids, and I worked a full-time job nights and did the activities my kids were in on my own. Oh, and I was full-time nursing school student. He spent more and more time out of the house. He said it was necessary to work on the rental properties we owned. Turned out that he had a side piece. The last straw was the fact that our 2-year-old drowned in our pool while he was supposed to be watching her. I've been divorced for 20 years now, and kids are all grown and doing their own thing. Leaving with the kids was the best thing I could do. Story 13. Apathy and indifference. My husband never seemed to care what I did. He didn't want to spend time with me or do anything with me. He would leave me alone when I was upset rather than ever try to comfort me. It was literally like I just had a roommate and we no longer had anything in common. Story 14. She wanted to be polyamorous. I reluctantly agreed. She refused to do any of the work required to make polyamory work, and I was tossed aside. Eventually, she just left. Story 15. My ex-husband's substance abuse issues reached the point where he was frighteningly erratic. One day, he got physically aggressive with me and our 10-year-old son, locked himself in our apartment bedroom, and discharged his handgun. That was my breaking point. That was 12 years ago, and it took several years, but we gradually built back a tentative friendship forged on our mutual love for our kids. Despite everything, we still rooted for one another. He never stopped struggling with addiction. He passed away from a fentanyl overdose last year on August 28th at age 43. Story 16. My spouse changed after 15 years, became angrier. Then, discovering Fox News rotted his brain, and he became angrier. I'm glad we divorced before Trump took office. Also, he was a terrible roommate. Love is one thing, but if your partner refuses to do their part around the house, it just makes the other person tired and resentful. Story 17. She had to work out of town for a few months and I realized how miserable I was when she was around. Also, I got the mail. She used to get it every day and found out about the hidden spending she was doing and massive debt she was getting us into. Then all the lies came out about stuff that was going on with her that I should have known about, but was willing to believe what she was telling me because I mistakenly trusted her. It was bad. Even my friends and family said I was in a much happier mood when she was gone. Story 18. My parents separated after 25 years and with 4 children because my dad was all hyped up on Tony Robbins. You can do anything you set your mind to audiobooks and working 70-hour weeks. All he did for years was come home, get a new suitcase, and leave in the morning. One day, they had the only fight I ever heard, and he left. Years later, he tried to reconnect with the kids, but by then we all had moved on from him. Too bad those self-help books didn't teach him about family. Story 19. I didn't feel loved. I begged him to show me he loved me more than just when he wanted. Then I found out he voted for Donald Trump, and I decided our morals were too different, so I decided to leave. Story 20. Just got divorced after 30 years. We had no intimacy, and I'm not just talking about, although he didn't have much interest in that either. I tried to get him to understand that I needed more than he was willing to give. More energy, more emotion. He wasn't willing to even try, so I left him and dated someone else for a while who gave me what I was looking for. Now that I know it exists, I'm going to keep looking for the real thing, even if I never find it. At least now I have the opportunity to try. Story 21. She wanted to move on to something else. The worst part is that we were a great team, and we cared for each other very much, but her priorities shifted, and she has become very much focused on herself. I hate the person that I once loved. I genuinely enjoyed being partnered, and we were best friends, but I've lost any confidence in myself, and I'm not sure if I could trust another woman. Time heals all wounds, and I hope my faith will be restored because I'm definitely trying, and it sucks being alone. Story 22. I wasn't a fabulous partner at the beginning. I leaned on her to do most of the administrative stuff. School applications, childcare arranging, etc. To be fair to me, I was brand new to the US, and so healthcare, insurance, and tax stuff was very confusing. Still is, to be honest. I was also venting my frustrations in the wrong places. But I changed. I worked on my faults. I stepped up. Plus, I did 70 of childcare, school runs, bedroom routines, weekend mornings, etc. A very involved dad. I took up tennis, so we had something to do as a couple, but she wouldn't play with me. And when she saw my play, she only critiqued and criticized. Never supported or praised my progress. 10 years and 2 children later and a completely dead bedroom, and she decided to leave. This was last summer and I'm heartbroken. Every time I look at her, I am sad. Then she speaks, and I remember how controlling, scornful, and mean she is. Not a single physical touch in years. No hugs, no kisses, no pats on the arm. I would screenshot anything nice she texted, because it was that rare. So now we are amicably split. I'm lonely but way happier day to day. It just kills me to see how affected my kids are. She told me that we settled and that she never loved me. I didn't settle. I accepted the things that wouldn't change and adore everything else. We live 2 blocks apart and speak every day. We buy extra produce and share. We are friends. But honestly, if we didn't have kids, I'd go back to the UK. Story 23. Not sure, he told me it was because he didn't like my hair, or that I sat on the couch after I've been in the garden. Actually, I should have known better. He'd been divorced 2 times before for silly reasons too. Story 24. She went full manic. I tried to be supportive. Eventually, had to get an OP for kids and my protection. She ended up in a hospital for a while. Got out. Still thought the CIA was after me, that I was a drug smuggler, online star, and sleeping with every married woman she knew. She filed for divorce, and I let a sigh of relief as stubborn and figured I'd be dead someday and wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. I have since found I am quite fond of living, got mostly sober, still drink socially, but only a couple here and there, unlike polishing a few fifths of bourbon a week alone, and want to do this living thing a while longer. I got the house and kids. Cost me a small fortune, but 10/10 worth it. Story 25. Because of my insecurities, I became very controlling. 17 years. She left me for a better guy. Can't blame her one bit. I told her not to blame herself. She did what she had to do to stay sane. I've spent years improving myself, going to try to not make the same mistake twice. Second marriage is 20 years. Still going strong because of the work I put into myself. Plus, my second wife is so very patient and understanding. It takes two. Story 26. He changed from treating me like a treasure to finding me despicable. He started verbally abusing me the day we brought our daughter home from the hospital. He struggled increasingly with shopping addiction and hoarding. I got a chronic illness for 3 years. He encouraged me to get a car but never got a license to drive it. I'd get out of bed to dress our kid to beg him to take her anywhere on weekends. I was working to pay $1,000 per paycheck on the CC debt he was racking up and sleeping. Too sick to do anything else, he refused to get help or therapy or support as a caretaker of an ill person. His unhealthy cooking contributed to me being hospitalized twice in 2024, and he refused to visit me in the hospital. I had to beg. He started to tell me my family didn't give a yay about him, and I was the only one he had. We began to live in squalor, and he began to hoard food and it rotted in the fridge. I lived in denial and pretended I was okay. I was too sick to clean or do laundry and scared to ask him. Got real GI issues. Started starving to death. Work made me take medical leave. I was hospitalized for severe GI problems and malnutrition in the ICU, and for 4 days near death. He visited me once, asked my mom to come. She saw the living situation and cried, and for the first time ever I complained about one single thing he did to someone outside the marriage. It all came out, and within 4 days I had left with my daughter. We lived in an Airbnb and then got a rental. He is still living in the home we do own, and after trying mediation for 6 months, I'm having him served with papers this week in contested divorce, no longer offering alimony. Turns out he had another $45K of debt I never knew about for 7 years. I think he was disappointed I didn't die. He prays I will die, but the joke is on him, cause since I left him thriving and I'm in better shape and more beautiful and happy than maybe I've ever been in my life. I have hope. He can choke on a bag of dicks, but I don't even really care cause I'm too busy feeling great. Story 27. Her spending. Holy smokes. We dated. She helped pay, etc. for 4 years. Got married. Then she had access to my account. I just started working and her too. My mom used to handle finances in the household, so nothing wrong for her to have access in case she needs to, but for the house, etc. But she would blow through money like nothing. I would check my balance and 12 of the money would be gone. I would talk to her one excuse after the other. Then we had a kid, and all broke loose. She would rack up debt and just dump it on me. It's for the kids I paid for everything. House, cars, insurance, etc. She just had to pay for food. My resentment towards her was deep. She hated me because I tried to stop her spending. We could have had a second house, but she just couldn't help herself. Story 28. There were many things an absence of emotional availability on her part. Me noticing I looked for reasons to delay going home, her older brother living with us for the entirety of our relationship, despite me asking him repeatedly to hit the bricks. But the thing that regularly comes back to me is that every time I described any challenge I was facing to her, difficulties at work, family disagreement, etc., She was always on the side of the other party. She never saw my side. Never. This isn't hyperbole. She acknowledged it herself and embraced it with pride. She saw it as a way of being intellectually challenging. I'm remarried now to someone truly wonderful and supportive, and we don't necessarily always agree on everything, and we don't have to, but we always have each other's back. Story 29. Ultimately, we wanted different things. She wanted to not work but still be able to have all the nice things, whereas I wanted a more simple life where I could finally relax a little and go on a couple reasonable vacations each year. These competing wants led to me working 2 jobs to be able to afford all of her wants, and to fund a couple major home renovations. She didn't want to work, so she wanted to flip houses to make a bunch of extra money while she just kept losing. Switching jobs, more than 10 jobs in 10 years trying to find the easy way out. Ultimately, she got what she wanted since she is now remarried and doesn't work. And I got what I wanted since I now can live my simple life where I only work 1 job and am able to save for an early retirement and go on a bunch of fun trips. Life is so much better post-divorce, and honestly it should have happened a few years sooner. Story 30. He absolutely steadfastly refused to work on himself, weaponized incompetence to avoid housework, picked faults in the way I sipped a cup of tea, and as soon as I left I blossomed. He's still angry with me 10 years later while I live my best life. Story 31. Married 25 years. He entered his midlife crisis 2 years ago and acted out in aggression and anger against me and our child because he couldn't reconcile his own issues. Story 32. He became abusive after we had kids and then an addict the last 2 years. Our kids and I have had 0 contact with him in 3 years, and our divorce was finalized a couple of weeks ago. Story 33. The marriage falling apart was the fault of both of us. Neither of us was really working on it. My response was to stick my head in the sand. His response was to cheat. Story 34. We were both unhappy, but I kept slogging away doing what I thought was the right things to do. Cook meals, mow lawns, etc. When what she really wanted was more emotional connection. I couldn't give that to her because I was too busy cooking meals and mowing lawns while she'd slipped into being my boss, complaining about the quality of the meals and the lawn rather than being a partner. The cooking and lawns are just examples, better. I was basically focused on all the practical rather than the emotional. She was unhappy and just complained about what I did as symptom of that. Wed slipped into these roles over a number of years, and it's only in hindsight I can see where things went wrong. So we both weren't getting what we needed from each other. She initiated the divorce, and in hindsight, it was the right thing to do because I was just invested in keeping the marriage going until death till us part, and couldn't see what the big deal with her was. So if it had been up to me, we'd be married until one of us died of old age. While I'm not over the moon about life at the moment, there are no instances of confused anger and despair like the old days. So I'm now content with my lot in life. I also rent a place that doesn't have a lawn, so that's a bonus. Story 35. Relationship was always one-sided. Even after trying to understand some people are not as engaged as others. My love language was quality time, and unfortunately, it was not the same for the other party. Story 36. She thought she could get more money than she did, and she really liked dicks. She lost. I have custody of our sons, and her alimony was only for 5 years and at a reduced amount. Story 37. My husband of 20-plus years was not only seeing random women but also paying hookers to ejaculate inside of them. And he said he found them on Reddit. Story 38. For my parents, it was that my mother became disabled and my dad wasn't supportive or helpful at all. She had a horrible brain injury, and he did absolutely nothing except yell at her when she couldn't do the things she used to be able to do. She literally lost the ability to write and count, and he'd get all pissed that she wasn't able to make lists for him or remember dates. I remember being furious with him and not at all shocked when she was finally able to leave him. Story 39. 25 years, and we had different views of our later years. We talked about travel and adventure when the kids were flown. He changed his mind. He wanted to sit on the couch, hold hands, and watch The Simpsons. Nope. Story 40. Not me, but my friend. His wife started having feelings for her boss. The boss was kicked out of his home by his wife, who wasn't happy about the emotional affair, and the boss ended up on my buddy's couch without his consent. My buddy was moved onto a cot in their spare room to give his wife time and space to sort out her feelings. She refused marriage counseling. She instead insisted that they could make things work by becoming a polygamous couple, a throuple. My friend loved his wife and didn't want to blow up their children's lives, so he agreed to try. Seeing a penis that wasn't his enter his wife ruined him. Story 41. Her alcohol and depression. Me thinking I could fix everything and just making it worse. We had many good years, but it was time to move on. I still love her and wish her the best, but happier alone. Story 42. Abuse. Physical and emotional against me and abusing pain meds I needed waiting for surgery. Finally figured out his lies were just that. Made a break. Story 43. I got taken for granted. When I realized I was doing the dishes, laundry, managing kids, and work, her not wanting to do anything intimate became a secondary problem I wanted out. We're okay friends now. We can talk about the kids and meet on birthdays. Story 44. I made an attempt to unalive myself and got the help I needed. While I was doing outpatient treatment and starting my meds for bipolar, my husband of 10 years was starting his affair with his coworker. My meds made me feel like a zombie. I couldn't go out and drink with friends anymore and followed a strict schedule set by my doctors. My husband just said I wasn't fun anymore. Tried marriage counseling, and after one session I knew the marriage couldn't be fixed because he wanted to try with his coworker. Story 45. So many things. We both contributed. We had developed into a sexless marriage. I resorted to, which escalated to online dalliances outside of my marriage. When she found out, she asked me to take an STI test. I was clean. I was confident that I would be because I hadn't slept with anybody and hadn't had in almost a year. After my clean test, I asked her to take an STI test. She was not clean. She became absolutely obsessed with the idea that I had to be having affairs or sleeping with random people. She constantly searched my phone fare, given what I was doing online, tried to ban me from having a relationship with my brother, and made me produce receipts for every penny. Everything I did was gaslighting and narcissistic. We both contributed to us getting to that point. Story 46. I've been waiting to find a time to write my story. I don't know why I chose this thread specifically. We didn't marry young, we were mid-20s. We decided early that we weren't going to have children. She had no hobbies or interests except video games, and to cook and travel extravagantly. Everything in between seemed like any money spent on ourselves read. Any money I spent on hobbies or maintenance things like cars and house stuff was demonized and made to look like I wasn't contributing to a financially free future. She refused to spend money on herself except for DoorDash and the vacations mentioned above. I had built an entire career around supporting us, making good money. We were fast-tracking out of debt. She was extremely unhappy with her current education field, mortuary sciences. Will always be a red flag for me now and her lack of career progress, and was working a low-income job not in her field, and I heavily encouraged her to join my career field. Lots of help, lots of encouragement, and she got traction. She got certifications and I helped her get jobs. Good paying and good learning jobs. We were making good money, yet she still thought we still weren't on track to financial freedom. I guess she felt that we were one disaster incident away from homelessness and complete and utter financial failure. I smoked a lot of bud during this time, so I used a bit of extra cash for that habit. Every time we'd build up a savings, something in our lives would empty it. Taxes, medical, vacations. Yet, we never missed a payment, always had extra insurances, and ensured we had plenty of safety nets in place, financially in case anything real happened. We would never be without. My longtime best friend, who also followed in my footsteps career-wise, eventually hooked her up with a remote job, and she never discussed any of the details with me. I came home after her interview, and she'd already negotiated her salary without mentioning it to me. She said, based on her experience level and best friend's advice, he recommended asking for XYZ just so happened to be the bottom range the position asks for. Who asks for the bottom number on a salary range? Who doesn't talk about income with their spouse? This was the beginning of the emotional disconnect. Who knows how long the actual emotional part of the affair was on for, but that's when I began to notice. I felt frozen, completely and utterly drowning, watching my life choice not choose me. The AP's spouse reached out to me and had mentioned she was nervous and suspicious of their interactions for years. I started by giving the benefit of the doubt. Dude is my best friend. She's my wife. I can't handle the thought of anything actually happening more than platonically. Months of an emotional disconnect, and I feel we were only held together due to a huge extravagant vacation that had both our families involved. If I thought the emotional was bad before the vacation, I was in for a rude awakening. The disconnect became so cold so quick after we returned. We eventually had a discussion and decided to plan to spend time apart. Up until this point, I was ignorant. I chose to be ignorant of the fact that this separation was influenced by something else, but I played the game as if it was just our time. Funnily enough, our intimacy during this time had exploded in a good way. We were intimate sometimes multiple times a day during our separation period. During our unentanglement of finances, I finally had found something that felt concrete enough to bring to her attention. 1,800 text messages in 2 days, over 10K in a month to one specific number, his. I confronted her, and she admitted to cheating but would only admit to doing it after we had decided to split. The thing is, she built her entire identity around taking months, if not years, to curate an intimate relationship with anyone. So her story and her views just didn't line up. Her excuses came in, "You don't think I'm sexy, your eyes light up when other people enter the room. You don't value money. We tried everything. You told best friend about your apprehensions about getting married to me. I wanted my cake and to eat it too. Got how cliche it all was and how cliche that it was all projection. I raised my voice during this, one time. Otherwise, it was an intense conversation. Up until that point, I had never once put her down, called her any names or disrespected her, but she deserved every single syllable of the espouse. I delivered at a speaking level when I walked out that door. She turned so heavily HR immediately after. No more discussing anything except separating finances. I spent years trying to be better for her, for us. I was never violent, rude, discouraging to her. I only wanted the best for her. I went to therapy, I was medicated properly, I had built friendships, hobbies, interests that she downright refused to participate in. I built a career. We bought a house that I spent so much effort to make as comfortable of a nest as possible. I organized the house, I decorated it, I teched it out. She had one 4-foot section of wall that she had some family photos on. Otherwise, I was the one that put effort into it. I feel like often I was the only one that put effort into us. Divorce hasn't been finalized yet because of some back and forth with the equity in the house. It's just past a year from our separation discussion, but not yet a year from Discovery Day. When the day comes that the papers will finally be signed, people tell me you'll be ecstatic, relieved, feel a sense of freedom that I've not dealt for over a decade. I truly still don't know how I'll feel, but I know I will be emotionally overwhelmed. I was devastated. I have had times of wonder since then, glimpses that I'll be much happier. I know we'll be happier. He cheated for 19 years and left. I didn't know until the end. I thank God every day he left. Story 47 IF was the breadwinner for all 15 years. He contributed basically nothing. I bought our home, travel, savings, fertility treatment, birth bills, childcare, never made any effort to increase his minimum wage despite having a college degree and being entirely capable and knowing his lack of effort to change things would be a deal breaker, and had 20 in his bank the day our child was born. Resentment built up. Turned to contempt, no way back from that. Story 48. We met in college. He was honorable, incredibly smart, and a lot of fun. But he was also ambitious to the point where nothing he achieved ever satisfied him. He came from a lower-class background and lived in perpetual fear of sliding down the socioeconomic ladder. Even though we both had good jobs, no kids, and lived well within our means, he couldn't let himself enjoy anything. After each goal was achieved, he would immediately start fixating on some new goal that he thought would make him happy. But nothing ever did. He gradually became a very angry, critical guy who hated everything, including, it felt like, me. I eventually stopped trying and started focusing more on my career and life outside of our relationship. My tolerance level for his constant negativity reached its max. I felt like I had no choice but to leave for my own sanity. Now that we're divorced, we're on really good terms. He doesn't blow up at me anymore, and we were able to salvage our friendship, but I'm totally done with relationships. I love living alone. No one yelling or raging. It's peaceful. I'm relieved. I'm out. Story 49. Coming up on 10 years and writing seems on the wall. After having kids and being so busy with our careers, we are basically roommates that get along most of the time. Either we get a divorce before we hate each other, or inevitably one of us will meet someone who reminds us how our partner should make us feel. And it will end that way. Stuck at the moment with neither of us having the energy or will to do what needs to be done. Story 50. I was no longer a priority and I acted out and cheated on her, and sadly not just once. She wanted to stay married, I didn't put in the work, and she divorced me. Story 51. I'm not sure if she was avoidant or a narcissist or both or something else, but she gave me less than the bare minimum while seeking attention from other men on social media. It made me anxious, and I reacted badly to her behavior. Crazy making is how it was put to me, and it's an apt description. Contradictions, sabotage, reactionary abuse, criticism, public disrespect. For 8 years of our 10-year marriage, this is how she treated me, while sleeping in a different room the entire time. When I'd want to talk about it, her go-to was, "That's why we're not a match and we should break up." There was no discussion that didn't end this way. At the end, she told me she wanted to leave, so after trying to get her to talk or work with me or go to counseling with me with no luck, I filled. As soon as I did, the story flipped, and the whole divorce was something I did to her, not the other way around. I'm glad that ride is over. Looking back, with the help of therapy, I've been able to see what I went through in a new way, and that the person I loved never really existed. I'm still really up by it, and am so not relationship material right now, but the calm and peace is amazing. Story 52. Slight foundational problems in our relationship turned out to be big problems after almost 20 years. You get into patterns with people, and if you keep reinforcing non-optimal things, you both end up someplace you don't want to be. Good news is, post-divorce, we have a great, healthy, Respectful relationship, which is awesome for the kids. We're co-parenting for another decade. Story 53. We both married to take care of kids we made at early age. Caught her cheating after 10 years. Even though she was super religious and we promised we'd never do that to each other. Ever. I couldn't look at her the same again and couldn't get past it. It was always there. She waited to tell me after the divorce that she never truly loved me. Messed me up for quite a while. Story 54. Things were great when I was healthy. Then came the sudden stage 4 cancer diagnosis, and it was like he wrote me off completely during treatment. I had no idea he didn't believe I'd make it. I was receiving world-class care, fighting with everything I had to heal, all while caring for 2 children, one of them a fragile preemie. While I was focused on surviving, he was having an affair with a young, healthy coworker who was also married. The betrayal stretched across the years it took me to recover. I thought the emotional distance was his way of grieving, of coping. I thought the long hours and late nights were because I could no longer work, and he was carrying the financial weight. But something in me knew. One day, I felt it, that unshakable sense that something was wrong. I kept asking him, but he wouldn't tell me. So I looked at his phone and found all the heartbreak I needed to see. I know it's hard on my young kids now, but I think it's better to come from a broken home than to grow up in one. And maybe someday, if they are in a similar abusive situation, which I hope not, they will find the strength to leave like I did.